And we have Brock, whose pronouns are he, him. So, Brock, thank you for calling.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
And
tell us
what did
what's
you
on
wanna-
your mind tonight.
Yeah.
I sort of want to talk about therapy through dating and relationship or sex therapy, because I've never attempted to do that, but I've tried with just let's say a regular therapist, but I don't know, it sort of didn't work out, but we were sort of progressing until the pandemic hit. But there's something else I also wanted to sort of mention and bring in. It's sort of like I was involved in sort of like a peer support group for people that are sort of having doubts about their religious beliefs or leaving or trying to live without it. It was sort of a good way to sort of, and this was in person, and it was sort of good to hear from other people that I'm not the only one who's going through this, but at the same time, I was like the only Black person in there. So at the same time, I sort of felt like not included, especially explaining my background, where it's basically there's like, it's forbidden, especially for my parent, that they didn't talk to me about sex. Hence why I never had any sexual experience whatsoever. And
Well,
sort of,
Brock, let me jump in a little bit just to get sort of a sense of where you're headed here. I'm really interested to talk about your therapeutic experiences, but I wanted to know if there was maybe a particular question that we might be able to answer, or if you can kind of help me see what it was that you wanted to maybe clarify or share with us tonight.
Like the red flag thing is where I started to experience that a little bit. Does that also involve with groups that are, let's say, not part of the profession, but sort of just to sort of help me navigate through it?
You're asking about like whether peer support groups are the same as like a therapeutic process group? Is that kind of what you were getting at?
Well, I would know that there's somewhat not, but they would refer to you as that, because like I remember that particular group had their own rules for like moderation when people were taking turns talking about their personal issues. I wonder if there could be a potential red flag in terms of when things are taken out of context, or like you not really comfortable explaining this with a bunch of people you don't know well enough, especially when it comes about your sexual experiences or lack thereof.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. Let me take a moment here with Emily to try and maybe clarify some of the kind of fact and like general good information for folks to know about peer support and about process groups and some of the like rules and restrictions and things that go along with that. And we'll go ahead and jump into that conversation and then take the next call. But I do want to let you know how much I appreciate you calling in, and hopefully we can offer some good information here.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Brock, for bringing up this topic. I think it is really important to remember, right, that we're talking about something that we know about, Christy, and that we need to do a better job as therapists about just talking about what are the different options that people have for support. Brock was talking about, a peer support group and some of the challenges that come with that. One is that it's a lot of people to talk to. And especially if you're talking about something that might be difficult for you, it's a lot more people, right, to talk about that in front of. And that's, I think, one of the downsides of a group. It sounds like, at least in that group, there was some sort of moderation or form, right, to keep on track and to keep things really balanced. And one of the other things that I think can be really powerful about a peer support group is one normalizes people's experiences. When you hear that other people have similar challenges in life or have even different challenges than your own, that can bring about empathy and connection and reduce shame, or some of the things that make talking about this kind of stuff really hard. And secondly, there's usually a greatly reduced cost, right? So one of the challenges of therapy is that it's expensive. Insurance coverage is not great for mental health in the US. And, even if you are able to find a therapist who takes your insurance that you like, that you enjoy working with, often the insurance company ends up interfering with your treatment and requiring specific
in a lot of different
things
ways.
in so many different ways. So sometimes support groups aren't, maybe the best option or meeting all of your needs, but they can help you in your goals, often at no cost or, a very low cost kind of option.
Yeah, so just to make it explicit and clarify a little bit, peer support groups are generally going to be led by lay people. Occasionally, you'll have somebody who has some credentialing or some expertise in that particular area take charge, and they can be really valuable. But it is going to be distinct from like a therapeutic processing group or something that's going to be led by a therapist. But in either of these situations, there is the benefit of the peer relationships. And we've been talking all night about the relationship with the therapist. In a group therapy setting, you are not just in a relationship with the person leading that group. You're in a relationship with everybody in the group. And those relationships can be potentially challenging or difficult, but there's a reason why we do group therapy. It can be really beautiful to have other people's stories and other people to connect with, other people to share with. I lead a religious trauma processing group, and the experience of not just having me say, well, this is very common. Lots of people have this challenge. You're not broken. This makes sense. This is okay. Is not nearly as effective as being able to look to the 4 people on your left and the 4 people on your right and recognize that they're all going through something similar. So, different types of group therapy can be incredibly valuable. And I guess part of what Brock was maybe getting after is that oftentimes these groups will have some restrictions on the type of content that we're able to discuss. And I think that that's appropriate. I wouldn't necessarily see that as like a red flag to stay out of that group. But if my concerns don't line up with what the group is here to do, I would encourage you not to swim upstream against that. If the rules say like we're not going to discuss sexual trauma, for instance, it might very well be because we're trying to create a safe space for people who are not comfortable or in a place in their own healing journey to be able to talk about those things. And those rules are there for a reason. So find the right group for you. Does that about cover everything, Emily?
Yeah, I think so.